And what I'll do, I'm going to pause, Kate, the recording while we wait for other people to arrive. Okay, friends, I think we're all in. Hi, Rebecca. We can hear you, but not see you. Ah, there you are. All right, you're all present, and I can see every one of you, which is great. So I will call the meeting to order at 6:02 p.m. on June 16th. This is the Town of Southborough Historical Commission, and welcome everyone. Let me take a quick roll call just to establish that everybody is in fact here and I'm not seeing things. So in the order that I see you, Kate Battles.
Here.
Jim Blaschke.
I'm here, unmuted now.
Thank you. Rebecca Deansrow.
Here.
Present. And Annie Pfaff.
Here.
Present. And Kevin Miller is here as well under the guise of Town of Southborough. All right, so we've got a pretty busy meeting. I hope to get through this fairly briskly for our sake. And are the Celtics on later tonight?
They are.
All right, so I know that concerns some people. I could show you the look that our dog gets on his face every time I mention the name Steph Curry. He gets this very sort of troubled look on his face. Anyway, well, hopefully it goes better tonight than it did the other night. So the first thing we have on the agenda after call to order is the treasurer's report. And I want to turn this over to Kate and to Annie, who is our new treasurer, and Kate as our sort of outgoing treasurer, and let you take it from there.
Awesome. So Annie and I also met. Annie, was it last week?
I think it was last week already. Yeah.
Okay. I was like, I don't think it was this week. Anyway, Annie and I met last week too, so that we could sort of go over what she'll need to do moving forward. But right now we're going to kind of wrap up the fiscal year together. And Dave, I know you're on this meeting right now. I just need to make sure that in this case, you guys too, typically, you all know, we tell people to bill for minutes after they're approved, but I need to get all the invoices need to be in by June 30th. So we will pay Dave's final bill for us before it's likely approved, just as an FYI. So I did just, Annie and I just submitted an invoice for a couple sets of minutes produced by Dave. So we're going to probably be able to return to the town, I believe, an estimated about $1,500. And remember, the bulk of that is really from the internet services that the town took over for us. One other important thing that we need to do is we need to vote every year we do this, is that we need to vote to give somebody permission to sign off on invoices. So obviously that will be Annie if she is comfortable continuing as treasurer. And then we could do a second. And I offered, since I've been treasurer for the past 6 years, I'm happy to just be the alternate signatory. The only glitch here is that we will make a motion. Then once the minutes are approved from this meeting, we'll attach the minutes. I have some documents that actually everybody is going to need to sign. So there's not a big rush on this because it's technically for next fiscal year, but hopefully we can all connect. And if it's not too much trouble, that maybe people would pop over to the townhouse on a day I'm working, or if there's any difficulty with that, I would certainly be happy to drive to people or have people meet here at my house, whatever works there. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So why don't I read this and then maybe somebody can move the motion. It says the Southborough Historical Commission votes to authorize Annie Pfaff and Kate Battles to sign invoices and payrolls. It is understood that this provision does not eliminate the responsibility of the other members of the commission.
So moved.
Second.
Perfect.
Is that to you, Rebecca? You're the seconder. Okay, then roll call vote. Kate Battles.
Aye.
Jim Blaschke.
Aye.
Rebecca Deans-Rowe.
Aye.
Annie Pfaff.
Yes.
And Miller is aye. 5-0, Dave. Go ahead, Kate.
So I'll have these two forms. And you know what? I'll text you guys individually and you can let me know when it's convenient. I typically at the town hall Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays from about 9 to 3, Tuesdays and Thursdays. That might change a little bit with the summer. But like I said, there's not a big rush, and I'm happy to bring it to people too, if that's more comfortable for people. But over the next, week or two, if we can get these signed, that would be super. And then, like I said, the final thing will be, we'll submit the final invoice for Dave through June and have it submitted by June 30th. And then, like I said, Annie and I met with the important people that we needed to meet with, and they confirmed that then once we pay that, they know that the rest of the money left in our budget will just automatically go back to the town.
And Kate, to be clear, everyone on the commission needs to sign this form?
Yes.
Okay, we'll do it. All right.
Yeah.
And Kate, can I just say 6 years just blows me away that you've done this for 6 years. And I just want to thank you for doing such a great job of it. And it's not a fun job. Sorry.
Oh, you're sweet. I appreciate it. I appreciate that. It's actually been great. I said it to Annie. It's just been a great way for me to sort of use that other side of my brain too. I've made some really nice relationships with the people at the town hall that I'm sure Annie's going to really enjoy working with. And one thing Annie and I were saying too is let's start thinking about now, because in December is when we meet to discuss the budget for the following year. So if everybody sort of keeps in the back of their mind, if we think there'll be some projects or ways that we want to, ask for some additional funding, then just keep that in mind so that we're prepared in December.
Actually, Kate, I have a question connected to that. I think it's fair to bring up is, as you well know, our historic house sign maker passed away. And so in order to sort of spend, money on that fiscal 23, we need a new sign maker. Have you had any leads or?
I do have a gentleman that I believe is taking over for Bob. So I have his information. So I'm going to reach out with him and see if he will be, I know that he will do the work. I just have to find out if he'll be relatively comparable in pricing. And I know that Bob didn't really change his pricing for about 20 years. So I certainly expect it to be more expensive, but I don't think that's an issue. And then, worst case, we also revert to offering the opportunity for people to purchase them. And most people, when they were, $65, were shocked at the quality and the craftsmanship for that price. So I can promise you that is on my to-do list, because I love the signs too. Well,
I got to say, I'm getting a little heat in my household for us to buy one. So, I have a full disclosure, a certain self-interest in us finding somebody, besides the fact that we want to be able to give them away.
Absolutely, because I think it's been such a positive thing to give those signs to the families that we've done that. It's been really a lot of fun for me too. So I promise you that is on my agenda. I have worked with and chatted with, because I connected a gentleman in Marlborough on the Historical Commission in Marlborough to Bob. And so he and I have communicated a bit back and forth. So we're going to reach out to this other gentleman and see what information we can provide. So you know what, my goal, I'll write myself a note, is to have a little update on that for our next meeting.
Hey, just as a side question, and I'm probably unnecessary, but this person that is taking over potentially for Dave, or for our sign maker rather, have we seen his work? I mean, are we comfortable with the quality that we're going to get out of the new signs?
Yes, No, I haven't seen his particular work yet. I read sort of a little blurb that he is sharing that he, and I don't know how he was connected to Bob, if it was sort of like almost an apprenticeship role, but he's very familiar with all of Bob's work. Bob used to go to trade shows and all around New England. So he was very well known and his style's very well known. So I do feel really pretty confident in that, but I'm also willing, once I make some contact with him, I believe he's in Rhode Island as well. I'd be perfectly happy to go and meet with him and see some of his work too. So that would not be a hardship for me.
Yeah, right. He also may have some stuff online you can see too. So
absolutely.
Yes. A little bit.
Absolutely. And I will, if he has some kind of samples and pictures, my goal will be to have some of that for you all to take a look at.
Right. One of the things connected to the treasurer's report, because it involves a sort of realignment of our org chart, as it were, is Annie has indicated, I'll let you talk about this, Annie. Annie's our rep at CPC, and I think she has some concerns going forward, given her treasurer's duties. And so do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. So my CPC seat is up for renewal at the end of this month. And the folks at the townhouse reached out to ask if I wanted to renew. And given my new responsibilities at home and some more responsibilities with the historical commission, I've been giving some thought as to whether or not it would be wise for me to maybe try to pass that role on to someone else. So how it works is on the CPC there is a dedicated seat for the historic commission. So it has to be someone who's already appointed to our group that kind of serves as the liaison to community preservation. So I'm happy to continue serving, but also wanted to put the kind of feeler out there if there's anyone else who may be interested and want to get involved in that capacity, or even if I could answer any questions, perhaps if you're just curious and want to learn more before committing.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about the commitment? How many, I probably post stuff, but I don't know how often do they meet. I assume it's monthly.
Yes. So it's once a month. And recently we've been meeting on Thursday nights, which is also, the same night that we do, for historical. They're really good at working around, around the schedule to make sure they don't conflict or overlap. So it's once a month. A couple times a year, we might have more than one meeting, specifically like the month of town meeting, we might need an extra meeting for our committee, to get all of our ducks in the row for the warrant articles that we're recommending. And then also actually around this time of year, we also have two meetings. One is kind of our, normal business as usual. And the other is, we do an annual presentation for the town, a kind of like, what is CPC? What can you use the CPA funds for? It's really not, there's not a lot of heavy lifting from the committee members throughout the year. We have a really great chair, Andrew Mills, and we also have a paid position. Freddie Gillespie is, supports the committee as the CPA consultant. And we also have a note taker. So we have a lot of support. So it's not, it hasn't been a lot of heavy lifting. Just the evening commitment is a little bit hard for me. Just with my new jobs at home. But as I said, happy to continue serving, because I think it is really important that we have someone from historical. So unless, someone else I'm seeing on the screen wants to step up, I would keep doing it, but, maybe talk to newcomers, down the road or something on whether they want to get involved.
And Annie, you were, I believe, reappointed officially the other night at the select board.
Oh, I was. Oh,
They did that sort of,
yeah.
It's a kind of papal,
I see.
all of you in this zone, or they had
Yeah.
a color code, I believe.
Yes, light blue.
All of you in light blue are hereby reappointed. And so I think that you're there for the moment, but
okay,
so
I'm locked in. Got it.
Just for my clarification, if as a commission we decide, or someone wants to step up, and obviously you've indicated a willingness to sort of step aside and let someone else try it for a while, if desire, whether in our existing members or someone we might be adding, that could be done right by just simply approaching.
And saying, it was I think I could resign and we could reappoint another member at any time in the calendar.
Okay.
It's just since they reached out and asked if I wanted to renew, I've been kind of ruminating about the possibility of stepping down.
Well, unless anyone wants to do it, knows right now they want to do it, maybe what we can do is can twist your arm to hang on as both treasurer and CPC rep, at least for the moment, and then give folks time to think it over. I mean, I could certainly do it. I feel like I've a lot on my plate with this deal, but somebody might decide that they want to do it, and then just let Annie know, and we'll move forward. Is that fair?
I think that's great. And we probably can't vote on it tonight anyway, since
right.
I don't know. I feel like we might need to have it formally on an agenda. So, so why don't I just say, if anyone is interested and wants to learn more, I'd be happy to chat with you, one-on-one, and we can go from there. And if not, I will kind of, keep trucking along, as I have been, until a point in the future when someone does want to take over.
Fair enough.
I'm not opposed. So, I'll think about it a little bit myself too, and maybe you and I can chat, Annie.
Okay.
Great. All right. Well, that's our sidebars from our outgoing and incoming treasurer. So thanks. Is that it for the treasurer?
Yeah, I think that's it. Annie, did I leave anything off about the treasurer stuff that you and I talked about? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
No. So I'll reach out to all of you guys. If it works for anybody, I'm in the town hall tomorrow from 9 to 12. But if not, I'll reach out, and maybe someday next week or the week after, you guys could just swing by and give me a signature.
Great. All right. Thanks, Kate. Thanks, Annie.
Sure.
Moving on, we have an applicant to join the Historical Commission. I'm very happy to say, and we actually have two applicants sort of in the works, that I've received the material only from one. I did reach out again, the folks at the townhouse, to try to get the second application so we can sort of go into that process. But the one I have in front of me and complete is from Grant Farrington. And I asked Grant to stop by this evening just so everybody could meet him. And I will say that, and I'm going to promote Grant to the panel. I'm delighted by Grant's application. will say that I've gotten to know Grant, I think really quite well through his work on the St. Mark's Street Park Working Group. It's always a challenge to me, even though I show up at all their meetings. But that's how I've gotten to know Grant. I sent out both his application, the kind of form that you fill out for the town to indicate your interest, as well as his resume to you, which he was nice enough to provide me. And, it's, of course, immensely impressive. I will mention that in addition to everything that's on there, Grant has recently taken on the role of campaign manager, actually, for Kate Donahue, who's the candidate for state rep in the new, I believe it's the 19th Worcester House District. So he's campaign managing, he's working on the park working group. He's got the Harvard gig that he's working, and an unbelievably impressive resume. So I just wanted to ask him to sort of drop by, say hello to us. And Grant, if you want to say hello, we can't see you, but I'm sure we'll be able to hear you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm not sure why I don't have the option to turn on my video, but I hope
that
audio
may be
is fine.
oops. Let me try that again. Grant. I don't know why that, let me see. There we go.
Hi there.
There you are. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Thanks so much for having me.
So I just wanted to again, Rebecca, I don't know if you've met Grant or Jim or Annie, Kate. Have you all met or had occasion to cross paths possibly? If you had any questions for Grant or any thoughts, just go around and just call on people.
Yeah.
Rebecca, go ahead.
I'm really happy that you're interested, Grant, and I think you will enjoy it. And we'd be really lucky to have you join.
Jim, did you have anything?
I'm just glad to see the interest, and moreover, I have a very impressive resume for somebody at your stage in your career. So, and we couldn't ask for a better alignment with what we do. So perfect.
Yeah, that my thought. I mean, degrees in government and history too, and all kinds of other actually quite relevant work experience is really kind of thrilling. And it's always talked about on the select board about the desire to get sort of newer, younger, fresher minds involved in this. And so and my experience with Grant is that he has had a lot of meetings as I do, and is always immensely well prepared in whatever he's concerned with. I expect we'd get the same energy here. So I'm really happy about it. Annie, did you have anything? I see you referenced, when you were saying that you had additional responsibilities at home, I was going to remark that I could hear it gurgling in the background at one point, which is rather sweet.
Yeah, sorry, my husband's out of town this week. So yeah, Grant, I'm likewise very, very excited about your application. I think it's, terrific to have some younger folks, see the importance of, town involvement and local government. And, I'm grateful for your expertise and, certainly support your application to join us.
Thanks so much.
Kate, do you have anything?
Yeah, I've had an opportunity to chat a bit here and there with Grant, which has been delightful. And I'm blown away by your resume. I mean, your GPA is a little, you probably could have worked a little harder, Grant.
Intimidating, maybe, Kate?
I mean, geez Louise. Anyway, yep. But that joke aside, I'm super impressed. I listen to an awful lot of meetings myself, and I'm always impressed with your delivery, your poise, the information that, how well prepared you are, all the information that you share. I love this group that we work with, and I think you would be a terrific addition. I agree that you're a young, fresh face too, which I just think sort of rounds us out even better. So I think that I would certainly support your appointment to the commission. So thanks for your interest.
What I would like, and Grant, did I get it correct that it is the 19th Worcester House District that Kate Donahue was running for?
Yep, that's right.
Good. Well, I would entertain a motion, because I think it's important to do it this way, to sort of formally endorse Grant Farrington's application. And so we can inform the select board that we would like them to move with all speed, and I'm sure they will, to appoint Grant to the Historical Commission. Anyone want to make that motion?
I move to appoint Grant to the board and the commission, rather, and that we support his appointment to the select board.
Second.
All right, moved by Jim, seconded by Annie. I'll take a roll call vote. Kate Battles.
Aye.
Jim Blaschke.
Aye.
Rebecca Deans-Rowe.
Aye.
Annie Pfaff.
Yes.
Kevin Miller is aye. So it's 5-0, Grant.
Thanks
It
so
looks
much.
like you're endorsed, and we'll hope the select board will take the same view of it that we do, and look forward to welcoming you in our next meeting.
Yes, definitely.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks, Grant.
Thanks, Grant.
Have a good one.
Take care. Bye. All right. So, and let me see. I got to do a little business here. Change to attendee. All right. There we go. All right. Next item. Chair's report. Okay. First, there's a lot of stuff here. Update on the our ARPA request. Annie has done a tremendous and wonderful amount of work on this initially, and she did it real fast, and she did a great job. And then she had to do it again. And I've got news that she's going to have to do it some more, but that's coming. The story is, we had our proposal. It made its way through the ARPA committee. It arrived at the select board. They seemed very supportive. I was happy about that. And they moved to advance it on to the capital planning committee, because they have to oversee capital expenditures, which is what these signs, the bronze signs marking our new National Register Southborough Center Historic District. These are capital expenditures. So they have to go to the capital planning committee. Subsequent to that, the select board sort of moving it on, Annie went back to our vendor. It was a local vendor in Marlborough, from whom we got the bid, which was in total $26,532, and that's the number on our application. And Annie and I were both somewhat gobsmacked to discover that in the barely 3.5 months since we had gotten the bid, our local vendor had raised their prices by 29%. It's sort of, we're in this crazy inflationary environment, but even that number was a shock.
Wow.
And so, I had sort of at the same time reached out to Jason Malinowski, who's the chair of the capital planning committee, and just for some guidance, and to say, I understand that our proposal has been forwarded on to you. We're very happy about that. Please let me know what we can do to sort of give you whatever information you would need. So, this suddenly threw us into a bit of a tizzy, and Jason indicated they have an online form that is part of their process to fill out. So I was, preparing to sort of fill that out. And then we got the news that, we had this crazy jump in prices. And so we had to figure out what to do. So intrepid Annie swung into action again and procured for us another bid, this time from a Florida vendor. And the bid was, there's a lot of moving parts in this, and part of this whole process, and why I had reached out to Jason, because I have no experience making capital purchases for a municipality. And how do we deal with the fact that pricing right now is sort of a moving target? It's like being in one of those shooting galleries in a carnival. The duck pops up and you think you got it lined up, and then it's gone. And so, the second bid came in that Annie got, and it was actually slightly under the initial bid. However, it did not include the posts that are necessary for the signs. And there was some slight change in that. We had tried to get in that sign that Rebecca, you had talked about, really wanting for the library. And so, we were minus the poles, we're minus installation and all this, although we had always thought that we might get some help from the DPW. So the bottom line is that I then sat down with the bid that Annie got and was trying to sort of work it so that we would not, we would come in comparable. In fact, I got it to the dollar, the same as what we had originally asked for. So we weren't sort of changing, what we wanted in the middle of the game kind of thing. And to get there, if you recall, we were asking for signs at the entry points, first of all. Those are the big ones, the 24 by 30 signs at the entry points to the historic district. That would be going west on Main Street, right, from about the railroad tracks downtown, going east on Main Street from, it's over near like where Fay School is, coming toward the center, coming south on Marlborough Road, and then coming north on Corderville Road, roughly where just before the rural cemetery, coming north on Lattisquama, which has about a quarter of a mile of contributing properties, coming north on Middle Road, which has a similar amount of contributing properties, and then coming south on School Street. That was the 7th large sign. Now, the School Street sign, it seemed to me, we had this in the back of our mind, is really a kind of optional one because there are no contributing properties on School Street. It's simply an entry point. And so that was an easy one to get rid of, to try to control costs, because I'm really, trying to do this in good faith and keep it as tight as we can. So I got it down to the 6 entry points: Lattisquama, Middle, Main, Marlborough, Corderville, right? And then those are the much more expensive signs. And then the 3 townhouse on a post, but smaller outside the old burial ground and at the library. There are those 3. And then we would need the poles. And, the vendor, the Florida vendor advised that you could actually use galvanized fence posts that you could buy at Home Depot, but you'd have to paint them. We had a little bit, but I had to go with that. I was trying to rough out installation costs and an 8.5% contingency because things are so sort of crazy, and came back with the 26,532. I filled out the form, I submitted it, and I reached out to, again, Jason Malinowski, and we spoke by phone today. And that was a very, very productive and helpful conversation because I said we're really doing our best to keep the costs down, to give the town something really good, that, and I won't remake the arguments that we've had about this, the tercentenary, marking the National Register District, all that kind of stuff, but was asking, Jason, for advice about, how to deal with this, the costs. And here's what his advice was. Number one, and they meet, and they're going to put our proposal on their agenda for Monday, the 27th, which is a week from Monday. What he advised was to get 3 quotes. So we would like to get 2 additional quotes. Surprise, Annie, you rang in back on just in time for that bit of, daunting news.
Oh yeah, I'm listening. I've been listening the whole time. Just I might have to turn my video off now and then, but I'm here. I
understand. Motherhood has its demands. No problem. But so he advised us to get 3 quotes, obviously to make sure that we're within range. Secondly, he suggested reaching out to either and or Karen Galligan, the DPW, and John Parent, the facilities director, because he felt that they might have experience with sign vendors like on the state bid list that he felt might be particularly reliable in terms of the durability of their pricing. In other words, not looking to sort of put it to us, and that might, maybe John Parent, for instance, can suggest go to these people and they'll give you a good price. So I thought that was very helpful. And then the other thing he suggested, and we had talked about this because I was already thinking in this way of thinking in terms of contingencies. If you get the money and the price goes up, what are you going to do? Would you cut something? Would you try to fundraise? Are there other places that you could seek funding? And I had indicated on our online application that I had in fact looked into other sources of funding and found them unsuitable because of the scope of the project. But that fundraising was a possibility. Annie, I did discuss with Jason a little bit the fact that you had felt that, for instance, with the townhouse sign, or possibly the one that we think would be appropriate for the library, that there might be CPC money because of the nature of the project.
I don't know if there would be CPC money, but there may be an opportunity to combine our project with signage project that's required for CPC. So I don't think it's a funding thing. It's a joining forces type of thing.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think I articulated that quite, because that's the way you had told me it. So I didn't repeat it now just correctly, but or to make money. And he said, look, if it's somewhat over, there are cases where you just go back to the select board and say, look, we need another $800 to $1,000 to complete the project. So I'm going to think about it over the next few days. Annie, perhaps you can as well. The rest of you, if you have suggestions on this, excuse me, I'd love to hear it. But that's where we're at. I thought I was really glad I talked to Jason today because his advice was very good. And he wants to see us sort of get there and succeed. So the idea of getting a couple more quotes, thinking through our contingencies, and again, maybe reaching out for a state bidder list, I thought that was real good advice and much appreciated by me as a neophyte in all this business. So
a couple of things. Just in general, Kevin, that was a explanation, but I didn't take enough notes or make a diagram of what's in and what's out. To get the number back where it was, is the net of it is you still have the three main signs and cut one or more of the smaller ones, or in general, what was this? Just the master? We actually
this current bid has the 6 large signs at the entry points on 2 on Main, Marlborough Road, Corderville Road, Latasquama, and Middle. So yep. 6 large signs, then 3 smaller signs, one of which would be pole mounted at the old burial ground, 2 which would be surface mounted to the buildings of the library and the townhouse.
So that's the same total number of pieces before?
The total is 9, and that's actually that's a static number, because in taking off the School Street sign, which made perfect sense because, again, there's no contributing property there. You could get in the library one, which we had initially, I explained to Jason that when we first had to do this, we had about 4 days to do it, if you remember, because the call went out so late. We really rushed not only to come in with the proposal, but to come in with a hard number bid, which I was very grateful to Annie for, because I think ours is one of the only proposals that had a hard number on it initially. And then, again, this advice, this is interesting for me. It's a learning thing. In your private life, you decide to buy something, you go out and buy it, right? Here, there's, taxpayer money. You have to be much more careful and methodical. And so again, I appreciated the guidance.
Okay, well, that was point 1. So good. 2 is that I would recommend, and I think you said this, that signs have the full durable, no Home Depot stuff. And if the sign is theoretically going to last 500 years, the post ought to be of the same kind of quality.
Right. Regardless of what the posts are, they won't be bronze. And I think the Florida vendor gave us to understand that this is pretty standard, actually. However, having another week to sort of look into this further, if Annie is willing to do it, other vendors that actually do supply the posts, because the initial vendor did supply the post. And I do think, I know Annie had reservations about it, as you do, and I do as well. So maybe we can do better. And that may be where a state bidder, or, somebody, again, suggested to us by, John Perrin or Karen Galligan might help us out on this point. Because I agree with you. We want, posts are going to last. The sign is no good if it lasts 500 years, if the post goes in 15, so yeah, I quite agree.
That was quite all right. And then the third quick thing, because Annie, we appreciate all the work you're putting into this. Hopefully there's a way to use that other bid, even though it's not viable, as reference, so that a total of 3 is not 2 more new ones that you have to, create. Maybe just create 1 more new one and then put the 3 together, and we know we wouldn't select the other company.
Yeah, so three total, including the 1 I already have. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, the one that Kevin's got an alternate supplier. That's really have 2 now, correct?
Right. We had the initial, the Marlboro company, and then Annie came up with this Florida bidder that was much more reasonable.
Right. That's what I think. Those are the
doesn't
2
charge sales tax.
Shouldn't have to. Right. And Annie shouldn't have to, create 2 new ones. Just one.
I would almost say the first one, the original bid, is, for all intents and purposes, no longer viable because of their 29% price increase. So, I mean, it's not that much work. I'm happy to, try to get, a couple more, to make sure we're doing this right. And I think it makes a lot of sense to explore that, state bid list. I mean, to Kevin's point, I don't know the process for these things. I didn't even know such a list existed. So I think that'll be a really good practice for us to, to think about for this.
Well, actually, I think that 29% thing works in your favor, meaning you should use it because you're not going to select them. It takes up the, the column.
Oh, that's not a bad idea.
And get one more. Yeah. You're not trying to create 2 new, bids with people.
Yeah.
1 more, and you pick the one you like, because the 29%er is off the scale.
Yeah.
And Jason did point out that because this is under $50,000, it doesn't require you to necessarily go with the lowest bid, that you actually are free to sort of, you know what I mean? If you get a low ball bid and you think they're not going to be very good, you can go with the higher bid. And he knows the rules of that, which I don't. So again, it was more really helpful information.
And I would add that I don't know for sure, but if we find that something is $500 over or $800 over, we could then ask a few questions if that would be an appropriate use of some of our budget monies as well. Because at this point where, we don't have bills that we know, like recording secretary services or internet. So I would certainly not say a significant chunk of money, but if a project is funded predominantly less, about $800, perhaps that would be something that we could ask for some advice on, if that would be also a good use.
Especially since we're turning back 1,500 out of a
right. That's right. Yep.
Yeah. Well, we did tighten our belts considerably over here this year ago.
We have. So that's it. Just something in the back of our minds too, to keep in our back pocket.
Kevin, I have a quick question. When you talked to Jason, did he give you any direction on how to handle the installation? For example, does that need to be part of what we formally request funds for, or do we need to kind of secure that work, somewhat, the DPW to do that work before we move forward? Did he give any insight on that part?
We didn't get to that. I'll tell you, I'll buy a post hole digger and go out and dig the holes myself. I mean, you know what I mean?
Oh, we have one actually.
Oh, great.
But that would be an easy email probably to Karen and to John to just say if this is something that would maybe fall under their purview, and would it be something they would be willing and able to do, so that we know whether we need to include that in the bid or not.
Well, I'm sure we'd be required to coordinate.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Karen Galligan anyway, because it's
of course
control the roadside kind of thing.
And John probably too, because of the facilities. Yeah.
Do we need to include any costs, like you know, I assume it's like the actual, you know, an actual town employee that would do it. Like, do they already have a line item somewhere where that would fall, or do we need to allocate funds, you know, for this specific project from ARPA? You know what I mean?
You know what? I will send Jason an email asking him that question, because I think it's a good one. And
Yeah.
I was in the piece that I sent to him earlier this week. I was trying to rough out those costs myself, you know, and frankly, it was an educated guess, you know. Obviously, that's the sort of least costly aspect of it. So even if, you know, we got the signs, the poles, the various fittings that are necessary covered by the ARPA money, and we had to, you know, beg, borrow, or fundraise for installation costs, I think we could manage to do it. Since, of course, we're empowered to raise money, we find a way. But I will ask Annie.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Advice.
For what it's worth, I remember the CPC, I think CPC was involved in some way with the sign that went up on South Union School. And I do recall that it was DPW that had to attach it to the building. And I don't remember any costs being discussed for that. I was just rifling through my files looking for the vendor who did that sign. But that was a long time ago.
Well, Rebecca, if you come up with it, would you let us know? And
yeah.
I think that part of it can be worked out. But I'm going to ask the question. All right, we'll move on from that in a hopeful frame of mind. And I want to talk about, next thing I have is to update you folks with regard to the Doc Stone house, that's 42 Main, and what's going on there. And there's been, you know, I sort of teased developments last time. You know, Jim Shea, the president of Faye's Board of Trustees, was on the call, and apparently I didn't see it in the chat because I was trying to pay attention to a million other things, but he was saying, okay, for me. I was a little coy about not wanting to put out there who they were considering hiring as preservation architects to look at this project in more detail. And he was actually let me know afterwards that that would have been okay. But I was trying to be considerate and discreet on the subject. But who they had interviewed for this was Gene Caroon, who is one of the principals of a firm, Goody Clancy. It's a Boston architecture firm. It's actually a very big time kind of firm. And they're doing the St. Mark's dorm right now, that huge building project underway over there. Mm-hmm. And she has a very extensive background in historic preservation. The other person that they interviewed, and as it turns out, the person that Jim has indicated they intend to hire is Lynn Spencer, the Spencer Preservation Group out of Nahant. And she's going to be known to townspeople as it's her firm that did the study on the St. Mark's Bell Tower, on the library, on the townhouse, that facade work, and also on the flag school. So, when Jim told me who they were thinking about, I was, kind of over the moon. And it was a very clear signal that, they weren't fooling around about trying to get the best. And also people that are familiar with Southborough, are familiar with the conditions here, know the town, know the history, and care, So I was really excited. And like I said, the last time we met, those interviews were on tap. Those interviews have taken place, and he's indicated that they feel that for this particular project that Lynn Spencer is the best fit. And so that they intend to engage her. Other developments, they had a pest inspection on June 3rd, for what it's worth. And tomorrow, actually, they have another, like a home inspector. Both of these folks specialize in antique properties, according to Jim. They've also engaged a Boston attorney by the name of Jean Pelletier. She's a specialist in real estate and historic preservation. I kind of looked her up, and she's a South End Boston solo practitioner in that field. So the takeaway from that is that I think Fay is putting together a very good team, a really top-notch, preservation architect, getting another inspection. They're looking again at the sort of, all the various elements that they have to think about. The last contact I had with Jim was on Friday, June 3rd. And he indicated, that they'd made a decision about Lynn Spencer and what was coming up, and that he would keep me posted. And so I feel, again, all the interactions I've had have been, really productive and really cordial. And I am, yet just based on my own gut, that he takes it very seriously. He really cares about this. I mean, he's an alumnus of the school. He's a resident of the town. And I think he gets it, like how much people care about this particular property. And so again, I hope to see a sort of good resolution going forward. And I'll keep everybody posted. I'm particularly, and I did send him, by the way, Sally's presentation to us last time was so great. And she had a couple of those, those photos she showed us she had gotten from Doc Stone's children, and that actually showed when the east end of the house was a separate building. It had started as a cobbler shop, and then it was the barber shop, and then it was, when Doc Stone bought the property, eventually connected. There's that short little connector section of the building. If you go back, I went back and looked at and Sally was nice enough to send me the files of those photos, which I sent to Jim so he could send them to Lynn Spencer. If you actually zoom in on the one photo of the separate, workshop barbershop, you can actually see the glass globe lighted sign that says barbershop just to the left of it's like mind-blowing to me. Like, it's a real sort of, there's such a story involved in all that stuff that I was thrilled. And I don't know, I hope Jim was as excited about it as I was, but I was happy to share that with him. And I thank Sally for coming by last time and doing the presentation. Next.
Oh wait, Kevin, I'm sorry. I have one quick question still. Is Lynn Spencer going to do an estimate like we had done on, well, you might not know, on Flag School, of the work required to restore the property?
Yeah, I think it tended to be a very extensive, and in fact, he was talking about wanting her to do a kind of comprehensive look at every property they own.
Oh, wow.
Because of course, when you think about it, right, 44 Main, the Mansard building next door, right, circa 1880, and then the kind of 1940 sort of mid-century lovely building with a turret next to it. Those are all Fay owned as well. And so he was kind of, I think it occasioned an impulse to look more broadly at the entirety of the school's holdings with regard to historic preservation. So again, from my perspective, this was just like, he's like whispering sweet nothings to me, although this was all by, email. So I was very happy.
Well, I would just caution him to brace himself when the estimate comes in.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, I think, I think, he's not willing to commit yet. I did have a member of the Board of Selectmen ask me if I had broached with him the idea of putting a hold on the clock on the demolition delay. And at that point I had not, but I did ask him that, and he said, well, I wasn't pushing it. But he said, I don't want to cross that road yet. We did think about it and we did discuss it, meaning with the other trustees. And so, you know, it's all a certain degree of diplomacy, I think, involved in this. But again, I'm encouraged, and he knows it's going to be expensive. But I think that there are costs beyond mere dollars here that I think they're also reckoning with. So I'm very hopeful.
I think the group seems to be exceptionally high. You pay for that.
Yeah. So I'm going to go on to the old burial ground. I don't have a lot on this, you know, as again, last time I was talking about that I had heard concerns. It was from a neighbor about conditions. And I was really annoyed with myself. If you remember, and I had some photos that I'd shown, and then I didn't have my sort of key, my answer key, which was stuck right on my other monitor, right in front of my nose. And somehow and it's still there. And now here it is. You know, for instance, I had the photos of like a tree branch that, you know, I had taken a photo of on February 21st, as it happens, and it was still there on May 8th. And simply with the comment was, we could do better. And so I have talked to a couple of select board members briefly on this and just voiced my concerns. And again, as I said to you all last time, it's not a sense that I'm exactly eager to become, you know, to have some kind of, you know, the grand poobah of the old burial ground or something like that. But I offered that we would like to help, that there are problems there. There is a kind of notable lack of maintenance and care and pruning of the trees and protection and restoration of headstones. And I would like to figure out how we could do it, how we could figure out to help, you know, to assist. And so I'm hoping to meet with at least one select board member to kind of walk the property in the coming weeks, and just so that we can start the conversation. This is going to be a process, right? Because, you know, people have to sort of give trust to get trust. And so, you know, I'd like to open that up so that we can move toward a place where we can be the help that I think we should be, because this concerns us greatly. That's all I've got on that. Now, the last thing I have is the planning board. I talked about this at our last meeting also very briefly. The invitation has now been extended to us formally by Mimi Luttrell, who's now, of course, the chair of the planning board. And Marnie Houlihan is going to sort of take the lead on this at Mimi's request. And they are interested, as I mentioned, under the Scenic Roads Act, you know, the sort of mechanism allowing for this, it was presented during town meeting that there are three bodies that can propose a scenic road. And it was the Planning Board, Town Historical Commission, or the Town Conservation Commission. And so in my mind, I had felt that, you know, and the thrust of the Scenic Roads bylaw initiative is to sort of protect our scenic roads, and particularly stone walls and historic trees. And it seemed to me that the Historic Commission ought to have a big interest in stone walls and historic trees. And I made the argument that they were, you know, some of those assets are older than any built structure in town, and arguably as valuable, if not more so. And so, you know, I had reached out to Mimi expressing an interest, and she responded very enthusiastically. And, you know, we were sort of formally asked to do it. So I talked to actually Marnie Houlihan this morning about this. And the idea is that, and she's, you know, formally asked us and formally also extended the invitation to the Conservation Commission to, you know, get involved in the Scenic Roads bylaw as a co-sponsor at the fall, you know, special town meeting. And if you were at or followed town meeting, which, I think, I don't know, I guess everybody was, that, there were two bylaws that they had going up at the same time. They both got held. Planning held one voluntarily, I believe at the select board's request. That was the tree one. And then scenic roads bylaw, there were questions that came up, and I think the planning board recognized those questions as legitimate and wanting answers. And so it was postponed indefinitely. And it was my opinion that was for the best, because those initiatives in my mind they're sort of peanut butter and jelly kind of bylaws, that they go better together. And so the intention is to come back with the trees in the fall and the scenic roads. And so the answers that planning is trying to grapple with right now are several. There's one is, how is scenic defined? And why is every non-numbered road created after 1978 on the list to be established as scenic roads? Because there was a lot of question at town meeting, if you recall, about, well, why is this street going to be a scenic road? It's not really scenic. And that comment was made by people who living on those very streets. And then there was a question about, what's a public way versus a private way? And then there was some discussion as well about, how do you define for people? You remember the public way is defined like from the center of the road going out X number of feet. And there was some question about, well, how far is it going to come onto my property? Or what people conceive of as their property, which is in fact, in some cases, not. And so the bottom line is that there are unresolved questions, and the planning board knows that. I understand it, and we want to be part of helping to work that out. Marnie sort of indicated that maybe not all roads will be scenic roads, and maybe there'll have to be a selection. And I suggested that the combined woman and manpower of the Historical Commission, Conservation Commission, and the Planning Board might help facilitate those determinations. Again, that sort of border thing, that seemed to involve both an educational component for homeowners, because I said to Marnie, when this came up, my wife and I were out measuring from where the pavement stops up into our yard, like how much would be affected with this tree. Would I be able to call up the DPW and say, take that branch down? There's some issues there that have to be smoothed out. So there's sort of multiple points of discussion and things that have to be resolved before going to town meeting. But the reason I wanted to touch base with Marnie this morning was because I wanted to come to you now and say formally, we've been asked. I personally am very enthusiastic about the idea. I think the more that we work in cooperation with other boards and commissions, the better off everybody is. Not just us, but people in town, because we need to start, doing more work together. And this is a natural for us, in my opinion. I understand that people might have differing opinions on the specifics of the bylaw, and Marnie has indicated a willingness to hack those out. So I was encouraged by that as well. So what I propose, I'd like to do a couple things. One is to hear what you think about participating as partners with the planning board. Also, I would propose, if you're in favor of it, that we invite Ms. Houlihan to our next meeting so that she can sort of brief us and explain what their position is and what she would like from us, what kind of help we can give, and hear our input on whatever concerns we may have as a commission or you may have as individuals about the bylaw. Because I think they came to the realization, I think, at town meeting that they needed just a little, they've got a good proposal. I was in support of it personally, but that they need a little bit more input, to put it over in the fall. So that said, and sorry for so much of it. Do you guys, Kate, do you have thoughts? Are you on board with this? Well, I don't know if it's fair to ask you as the recording secretary.
Yeah, I think it's fair to ask me just because I have, I've sat through all their public hearings for these, and I was, of course, at town meeting as well. I have thought from the beginning, because they talked about, that the determining body could be historical commission, Concom, so on. I see it as a natural fit. Absolutely, especially when you think about trees and stone walls. And I think it would be a real benefit for us to be able to collaborate with the planning board, maybe conservation as well. I have immense respect for the planning board because I've had the privilege of working for them for about 4 years now. So I see it as a natural fit, and I'm absolutely in support. I understand people's residents' questions. The public right away, from my understanding, in town isn't a flat number because of a lot of our old roads, different things like that. So there are definitely issues that need to be hammered out. If there's, if a criterion list needs to be developed to determine what roads are scenic, I just think that we would be natural partners. So I'm fully in support.
Rebecca, do you have anything?
Nothing really new. I think that it's a good opportunity for us to forge some positive working relationships with other groups in town, and kind of, I guess, advocate for historical preservation more in that process. So yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Annie?
Yeah, so I feel very similarly. The more we can collaborate with other boards and committees, I think that's very, very good for our commission. The scenic road bylaw, as presented in the warrant, I personally had some questions and concerns about some of those that you've already mentioned, Kevin. So if I had to vote tonight on whether I would support it as is, I would probably say no, but I definitely support, having conversations, with the planning board, and with the Conservation Commission, maybe seeing how we can, provide some value, and, determining what is scenic. My personal opinion is that, every road is not scenic. That's like saying, every house in Southborough is on the National Register of Historic Places because the town was incorporated at, X year, whatever. So that's just my personal opinion. But, definitely in support of, working collaboratively with other boards, and happy to participate as, in our effort of that.
Yeah, I actually sort of, said to Marnie that I felt that, a new perspective on this, for example, would actually be really helpful and useful in trying to get, because I think they, clearly recognize that there was a little bit of pushback on certain elements of it and things that need to be resolved. So I thought that bringing that perspective on board would actually be really good, for everybody. And it doesn't guarantee, of course, that at the end of the day, we'll all be unanimous, and that's fine, right? I don't have this thing about unanimous votes personally. I think it's okay to disagree. You know what I mean? Like on a particular point. So, but I think
one other thing is that I'll add is I do, to your point, Kevin, I do think that the scenic road bylaw and like the tree bylaw go hand in hand. And, there's a couple things in that particular bylaw that, I'm not sure I'm 100% in support of. So again, just kind of seeing where the planning board ends up with that, kind of may affect my feelings of the scenic road bylaw.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, that's fine. I think our my thought in all this again was to sort of get in conversation with them and see, you know, because in principle, this is a matter that we ought to be concerned with. It makes sense for us to sort of partner with them and, you know, see what we can work through. And again, if you have reservations, I actually think that's to the good, because they're going to face them, right, at town meeting. So let's, you know, maybe if through the course of talking with them, you know, some doors may open that accommodate everybody. That's the hope anyway. Jim, any thoughts?
I think I agree with the comments up so far. I do think that trees and the roads, you know, go hand in hand. There are already, I've seen bits of this, but bound to be conflicts, at least, or bumping into homeowner rights, and, you know, depending on the right of way, whether that says, well, part of your property is really, you know, now part of the road, or these trees should or should not be affected. There's a lot of that. All politics is local. You know, it would come down to I think being as rational as we can with people. But I do think it's worth us being part of. Agreed. And I think we've all got pretty full plates. I don't know if it's feasible, but I'd certainly be willing to participate if we could rotate through this. You know, each one take a different meeting, but I don't know if there's enough continuity in doing it that way.
Well, I think that, you know, I don't know where we're at that point. If we need, you know, as it happens, I tend to watch all the planning board meetings in real time. But I don't know if we necessarily need a formal rep, as long as there's the sort of conversation going back and forth, and we can devote, you know, a portion of our meetings as necessary to discussion of this. I would like to kind of, if it's amenable to all of you, simply to invite Marnie to come, if she's available, to our next meeting and kind of explain where they're at and, you know, what they would like from us. Is that, we don't need a vote on this, do we? Is that, everyone, is that okay?
Yes.
To hear what the, and Kate, I'll defer to your advice. Do we need a vote to somehow officially embrace the idea of, it might be a good idea if people are okay with that. Just the idea that we are going to, you know, engage in a kind of partnership conversation.
I don't think we need to vote on that. I think if we're going to invite Marnie to come talk to us a little bit about the bylaw, some of the issues that they're facing that they feel need to be discussed, let her sort of propose the relationship, and then once we have a chance to discuss it and decide whether we want to co-sponsor or not, then I would think that we would take a vote. But I don't think we need to vote, just to sort of for, like, you know, an information session, if you will.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think at this point, that might be a good idea, you know, have again, Marnie come talk to us.
We can express to her, you know, our feedback, like what the pros and cons, that kind of stuff. So I don't, you know, it's more going to be sort of information gathering at first.
And yeah, actually, it would give time also for, because, you know, funnily enough, I mean, I followed all those hearings and the discussions of it, and, you know, obviously read the warrant, but I got to go back and read it again. You know, so I will send to you all, because I have that file, the Scenic Roads bylaw, and you can all read it and mark off your thoughts, concerns, objections to, you know, parts of it. And then we can, you know, ask the questions, hopefully in July. Fair enough? Good. All right. I will extend the invitation. Now, so that ends finally, mercifully, the chair's report. And I got to talk now and really want to hear your thoughts on, there's a lot going on with the St. Mark's Triangle project, the park, the road, the parking lot, the whole ball of wax. And let me try to bring you up to speed. You know, we last met on May 12th. It was on the 11th, as you recall, that I got the letter from, preceded by a call from Rob Kuklovich, this CFO at St. Mark's, indicating that St. Mark's is going to do the dig. And that letter was dated May 11th. We met on May 12th. On May 12th, to try to, and I think I talked about this in our last meeting, but Rob had asked me what Brona Simon at the Mass Historical Commission had actually seen, because they needed to be as accurate as they could when they made their application, when the Cultural Resources Management firm, that's the archaeological firm, made their application to the state. They needed to make sure the information was as accurate and consistent as possible so that they wouldn't have unnecessary delays in paperwork. So, you know, that the initial site visit, I wasn't present for. Michael Wyson had, you know, initiated that, and it all happened very quickly. They sent somebody out almost the next day. Michael and one of the state archaeologists walked the property. So I wasn't privy to everything that had gone on. So I was trying to reconstruct, you know, who had seen what, when, and what was said, and so on and so forth. So I sent a letter on the 12th to Brona Simon at the MHC, basically asking that, you know, what exactly, you know, were you given? What did you look at so that I can help? And the answer was very slow in coming. I understand that. And so I went digging harder myself and came up with what I believed, and I think I've been confirmed in having been correct, was the right answer on that subject. And so I conveyed that to Rob, who then conveyed it to Archaeological Consulting Services. That's the company in Guilford, Connecticut, that's going to do the work. So they could get on with their paperwork. So that's, you know, where we were there. A letter actually came back from Ed Bell, who is the Deputy State Historic Preservation Officer and a senior archaeologist at the MHC, dated June 1st. Got to me a few days later. And it kind of confused the matter, to be honest, somewhat, because they confused some of the information, like they got the firm wrong, the acronyms of the firm and all that kind of stuff. But I sort of was able to clarify when I was asked by a select board member what the deal was. And I said, well, that outreach to MHC was simply to try to clarify the situation on behalf of St. Mark's so they could move forward with some kind of dispatch. And so that was fine. That all got worked out. I talked to Rob on Monday, June 6th, so 10 days ago, to ask him where we were at timeline-wise with this project. And this is what he told me. They had some delay, actually, believe it or not, securing an excavator, because they need an excavator for this project. And I guess in the summer, they're hard to get, you know, because they're in use. Everyone's trying to dig while the sun shines, so to speak. And so he said, finally, actually, the contractor working on the dorm over there was able to help them out. He indicated that they were going to sign the contract with ACS. Again, that's the Archaeological Consulting Services firm that's going to do the work that day. That was June 6th. He indicated that the application, which is a 30 to 40 page document, would take roughly 2 weeks to prepare and submit. They expected a 1 month turnaround from the state, 1 month for the reply. He indicated that the field work, the actual field work, was expected to take only about a week. He was unclear. That's with the actual digging. And of course, that's pending on what they find. It could go longer if there's, the field that needs to be considered, warrants extension. But he expected a week of digging. He wasn't clear about whether the archaeologist would be on site before or after that period doing preparatory or follow-up work, but that after the field work, then they would need time to process whatever data they collect and to write the report, and that he expected 3 months from commencement of operations, that would have been on June 6th, till the final report. Labor Day is September 5th. So figure it's going to take till Labor Day is 3 months. And that's what the select board, heard. I tried to convey that information, and that's the best we have to go with. So a 3-month process, maybe a week or so of field work. And one of the things I would like to do, possibly for our July meeting or whenever the principal of ACS is available, is invite him to speak to us and to explain and lay out. And had I more lead time, I would have tried to do it for tonight. But I would love, and I think it would be great, not only for the commission, but for everybody who cares about this stuff in town, to have the opportunity to hear him explain exactly what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, and how they'll process the results. So, that'll be really fun, and I can't wait. And I hope he accepts that. It'd be great PR for them and for St. Mark's too. On Tuesday, the 14th, this past Tuesday, and the select board had a meeting, was that a week and a half ago, where they took this up. And I actually ended up speaking on that call briefly, just to recommend, because there's concern about, they wanted this sort of, there was talk about going forward and paving the road in the meantime, right? The new road. And my very strong suggestion was that they wait. And I was, it was finally a kind of amicus brief with the select board, because my observation was we don't know what's going to be found. Hopefully what's found is very close to the stone wall, if anything is found. However, if, the archaeologists, and of course it's under state supervision at that point. And so this, you don't want to be in a situation where you've paved the road and then the archaeologist says, well, I keep finding things further and further to the north. And then the state says, well, that road has got to go, because you got to dig under there. So, and that's what I was worried about. And I didn't want our friends, at the select board to sort of find themselves in a ditch, so to speak. So that was my advice, and it was taken. I was happy to report. And so that's where that left. Now they met again Tuesday night, the 14th, and there was a fairly long conversation about the St. Mark's Triangle in this project, beginning at the 3-hour and 35-minute mark. Our intrepid select board friends, they got to have a lot of stamina. And it went on to the 4-hour and 2-minute mark. And I don't want to characterize it. Instead, I would suggest that all of y'all, whoever didn't see it live, so to speak, check it out on Memorex or YouTube. Again, 3:35 to 4:02 are the timings. And, it begins with the town manager, Mr. Purple, talking through some issues, and that they had been contacted by the DOT, actually prompted by the Inspector General's office. And there'd been a conversation with Ms. Galligan, Mr. Purple, and the VHB designer that designed the park about issues with the grants and all that kind of stuff. And I mention this here because essentially, to boil this down, is that the concern that the select board has is that until there's a resolution with regard to the park, it's going to hold up further grant monies. Which grant monies was unclear. But there's a concern about future grant applications, essentially, until there's a resolution. Fair enough. I mean, that's a concern that they have to have. So there's an interest, obviously, in seeing this done. But again, I respect their decision, and I know it's a difficult one, to hold off on the road work until we get a more definitive answer. And I did suggest in a conversation with the chair of the select board at one point that depending on how the work goes, the consultant may be able to give an indication, a kind of all clear, possibly, I certainly can't guarantee it, but possibly before Labor Day. And in the meantime, what they're going to do is the contractor has other work in town, has, downtown Newton and Maine water stuff, they got other jobs. And so they're going to go do those jobs and try to hold off. Well, they are going to hold off until we get, a clear indication. So that's all very encouraging news. There was some conversation about the fact that over this history walk business, which we have, in some sense tried to stay out of, that the sidewalks that were to be constructed as part of this sort of qualified, and that the only part that actually currently is not scheduled to be built is the so-called cross-country piece. That's a quote, which I take to be the part actually through the park. So no real thoughts for me on that at the moment. The news for the Historical Commission, so far as I was concerned, was the fact that a revised charge is being brought forward for the working group. The working group currently consists of Bill Sines, Marguerite Landry from the library, James Nichols Worley, Andrew Dennington, Grant Farrington, and Dan Blanchard. And my understanding is that Dan Blanchard does not want to be reappointed. He's got, I guess, other commitments to take care of. So that was going to leave Mr. Sines, Ms. Landry, Mr. Nichols Worley, Mr. Dennington, and Mr. Farrington. So 5 members. And they want to expand the working group. And there was some discussion about whether they were going to go to 7 or to 9. And Andrew Dennington is charged with doing this work, was proposing initially 7, adding an official representative of the Open Space Preservation Committee and an official representative of the Historical Commission. So this is where it concerns us. And he did reach out to me, and I said I was fully in support because I felt that our concern about the fundamental nature of what's under the ground, that being addressed, and now invited to be part of this process. Of course, I've been on all their calls and have spoken actually a number of times, in support of what them trying to move forward. I think it's quite appropriate for us now to, and accept the invitation to try to, figure out where we're going. And I know there are all kinds of other matters involved in this that people feel very strongly about. But again, I'm confining myself to sort of resolving, assuming that those other issues, I know that, for instance, different kind of land swap is being investigated or talked about or thought about. And those issues I leave to the people who know best about it. But after discussion, it was also suggested that perhaps a board of 9 would be better. And I believe it was Ms. Braccio, who was particularly interested in, and the discussion sort of evolved out of this, to have, if they could get a civil engineer or architect or a design engineering professional on that working group, it would be all to the better. So at the end of the day, the idea was the existing 5 members, a representative of historical, a representative from open space, and then 2 more at-large people, if I understood them correctly. I mean, I did rewatch this part of the meeting again today. And with the call going out again for maybe an architect or a civil engineer or some kind of design professional to help facilitate, with an expectation that some kind of report would be issued by September 30th or an extension asked for. And so I hope I did that without being too confusing quick enough. But so the bottom line is the cavalry in the form of the archaeological survey is coming. The select board, I believe, is very wisely holding off on the road building. They're impatient, and I understand why, because it has larger things about grants and all that stuff. However, they're going to hold the fort, work elsewhere, get the archaeologist out there, and then there is a certain kind of urgency to expand the working group and try to get something going on. So that's where we're at. And again, I've already sort of indicated, my feeling is I'm glad about all this. I'm glad that we're being asked. I think it's appropriate for us to participate. And I would actually, pending your approval. And I did, by the way, again, Andrew Dennington, who's the vice chair, reached out to me, and he sent, I guess, the same information to Freddie Gillespie, the Open Space Preservation Committee chair, indicating that this is what he wanted to do and asking if we were supportive. And my reply was, yes, personally, I am very supportive. And furthermore, I'd like to do it. And if it's, depending on how the rest of you feel, because I've been so involved in this, I would personally volunteer to be our rep on this working group. I did ask him, I said, as it happens, we were planning to have, Grant Farrington, who wants to be on historical, and he's already on the working group. And I said, I don't want to clog up the works and seem like we're, what I mean? We have 2 in a way. But Andrew said, that's actually fine. I mean, Grant is already established on the working group. And I suppose if one of us went on, let's say if I went on, I would be our official representative. Grant can continue to represent his concerns. And Andrew didn't feel that was, so I was trying to be, in a way, sort of self-deprecating about it and say, look, I don't want to be stacking the deck over there. But he was fine with that. Because I think it's understood that, we're trying to get somewhere with this in a positive way. So, Jim, do you have any thoughts about this whole, I'm sorry for the big, long narrative.
I'm in concert with what you're saying. I think I was going to suggest that if Grant's already there, that's enough. But if you're willing to do this and are interested in it, I don't see any harm in it either. Yeah,
I've been so kind of deeply involved. And I must say, I do have some thoughts about what is the right path. I mean, I've given some indication of that on one of our previous calls, is that I am willing to listen and willing to learn and to be persuaded. My current position is I'm in favor of a light touch over there, a very light touch. And as I said last time, I was sort of appealed to by Dan Blanchard's idea of a kind of place of quiet contemplation for those who had been excluded in official town history. And I think there may be some way to sort of come up with a very kind of quiet and dignified and elegant solution to what has been a very, sort of vexing issue for people for a long time. So that would be sort of my approach. Anyway, Rebecca, do you have thoughts on this?
No, I think it sounds great. I'm delighted that they want someone from historical there. So,
yeah. And I will say, of course, that when Mr. Dennington originally brought the charge forward, that was the original proposal, and it kind of got sort of talked out. And now I think there's an understanding that that would actually be very productive. So I think it's all, you know, working out really well. And I you know, as everybody on the Historical Commission knows, we did not discuss, right? We did not discuss at all the fact that I think we all arrived at a personal decision. I know I did, that at the time, you know, the thing was originally brought together because one of us could have stepped forward and asked to be on, but we didn't feel, and it was a really interesting phenomenon that happened among us because we did not discuss it. I came to the decision personally that, you know, lacking in an official appointment, and most of all because the possibility of unmarked graves and what we felt at the time was the inattention to that issue, that it was inappropriate for us to kind of put ourselves forward. At least that's how I felt personally. And I assume that you all felt the same because none of you did. So, but at this point, our key sort of moral and philosophical hang up, you know, with regard to the archaeological dig is being addressed, is going to be addressed. And so I feel like it's only good citizenship on our part now as a commission to, you know, I tried to be a kind of off the record friend to the working group over the past couple months. But now I think it's appropriate and called for us to sort of step forward officially and do everything you know, we can to try to see a resolution. And you know, much will depend, of course, upon what the dig finds. And I don't, you know, part of the challenge, I think of, because I understand the select board wants movement, but it's going to be a challenge to do to get something done by September 30th if the report isn't expected until perhaps Labor Day. Although again, I hope there's some kind of clarity before that. But it's going to be hard. But you know, part of the reason that group appeals to me is because I've been so impressed with them, watching them work. That I think there is a chance of coming up with something. But there's still a lot of unknowns, and of course there are all those other factors that people feel very passionately about, and I have my own private feelings about. Well, you know, and that, you know, I voted how I voted at town meeting, but there's a certain, I think, in a way, to be able to move forward, you have to do a certain amount of compartmentalizing in this, to be able to deal with the things that we can control and do them right and do them, you know, fairly and honestly and justly. So that's what I'm committed to doing. Kate, do you have anything?
No, I saw the charge came across the clerk's office today, so I was delighted to see that. Plus, I did listen to the meeting as well. I think it's fantastic. I know that you've been on most of those meetings. I know that the members have sought out some of your feedback and your opinion, and I know you'll represent us well. And I know that while you have personal feelings, I know that you'll take the feedback from all of us to those meetings as well. So I think I think it's a great way to make that a real comprehensive, well-rounded group. So I thank you for your willingness to participate.
Annie.
Yeah, I'll just echo what others have said. I think it's great that they want, formal participation from our commission. And Kevin, I know you've been following this really closely, watching the meetings, being involved. And I think it's, makes great sense for you to, step up in a formal capacity. And I also think it's great that, Grant is also, involved. And, even if he is, kind of more of an at-large member, to have two, to have basically, two people from our commission involved with such a, important topic for the town, I think is just really, really positive.
Well, thank you. All that said, and again, if anybody else here feels strongly about wanting to do it, please say so, because I just thought I'd just put it out there that I would like to do it, but I can be overruled. I mean, only one vote out of 5.
I think you do a fabulous job. So I had one quick question, Kevin, about that. I thought that they were going to ACS. I think you said I thought they were going to do sort of a visit and a preliminary look at the site to see if it warranted a dig. Did that happen, or did they just kind of move right to dig?
I'm unclear about that. And I don't know when they're going to be physically present or not. And like I said, I'm going to reach out to the firm in short order because I also want to offer our assistance to the degree that we can do anything for them. Like for instance, it occurred to me that, I can certainly broker an introduction to folks. I know a few at the Historical Society, which of course is a stone's throw from the dig site and which possesses archival material that may be of interest to them. And, so I would like to kind of extend a hand and say, look, let me buy you a cup of coffee when you get to town, and let's see how we can help, if we can do anything. And, I had said before that I'd had some kind of speculative conversation with Rob Kuklovich regarding, could their students come down and watch or help, or
I was going to ask if we could.
Yeah, and I said, well, again, you're a consultant, will have to tell you that, but we would certainly that would be kind of cool, right? If Algonquin people or Fay people could, kids that cared about that kind of thing could come even just look at it, and see how this kind of excavate. I mean, I'll be standing there like a big overgrown kid.
Exactly.
When the guy's on site, because I want to see how it's done, So I really want to get him to, if I can use some powers of persuasion to get this individual to come. I'm sorry, I'm not using his name because I don't remember it at the moment, but gosh, no, I'm drawing a blank, but to get him to come and talk to us and explain would be awesome. So, so I have not, officially since this Tuesday select board hearing, I haven't heard anything officially, but from what I understood, they're going to want someone from historical, and they're going to want them quick. So what I propose is that we designate somebody officially, so that if we get the call, because we're not going to meet probably for a month. So I don't have to either call a quick meeting or say to Andrew, well, I can't do it because I'm not formally, you know what I mean? So is that all right? So if somebody wants to nominate me to do this, it feels so gross, but.
Is it official? Can we make that recommendation?
Well, I think maybe we could do it that designate so-and-so pending the invitation from the working group kind of thing, if that makes any sense.
Will it be from the working group or will it be from the select board?
Well,
I think it'll be from the select board.
From the select board.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to pending formal invitation from the select board that the Historical Commission recommends to the select board to appoint Kevin Miller as representative of the Historical Commission to the St. Mark's Street Park Working Group.
Well done. Well done. Well done. Wow. All right. So motion made and seconded by Jim and Rebecca. Roll call vote. Kate Battles.
Aye.
Jim Blaschke.
Aye.
Rebecca Deansrow.
Aye.
Annie Pfaff.
Yes.
And Kevin Miller votes aye for himself.
Mhm.
It's the one time I feel okay doing that. Thank you all. And thank you. I take it as a vote of confidence, and I don't take it for granted that you would have faith in me to go off and try to do this and represent us well. So that's that. We now have to approve meeting minutes of April 12th. I'm sorry,
I don't know if you want to talk about that.
I'm sorry, say that again?
You skipped number 6.
Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah. Well, we'll do, this will be a quick one. I have been underwater, quite frankly. And Jim, who graciously offered to assist with this, we have not had the chance to talk. I have thought about the issue of the demolition delay bylaw and the work we need to do on it. Even though, we haven't had a chance to put pen to paper on this. And, I have to say, the only part that I feel any particularly urgency on is the matter of the age of the, what I mean? It's 1925 or older kind of thing, which was a sort of probably, when this was conceived in the first place, is somewhat of a slip. You know what I mean? Because what it should be, of course, is a defined date range, like
A rolling date. Yeah.
right, like 75 years or more. Then it falls under, instead of 1925, because of course every year that advances, that window gets, what I mean, the list of properties that don't qualify for that protection gets larger. That said, all the rest of it, to me, the stuff about, let's say, for instance, we have to have a 10-day, we have to act within 10 days. And there's some thought about pushing that to 30 days because it's a more realistic kind of thing. That's nice, but to me, it's not urgent. I don't know how you folks feel about that, but one of my concerns about this, of course, is that to amend the bylaw means to go back to town meeting with it, right? Where we all know that anything can happen. And I guess I'm a little bit of the thought that, as town council made clear to us, we don't need those rules and regulations to operate. We've got the bylaw. The bylaw is the bylaw, right? That's the sum total of what our powers are. The idea of rules and regs, they cannot exceed the power of the bylaw. And so effectively, they're simply a sort of roadmap of how to do it. And I don't find the bylaw that complicated to begin with. So I guess my argument is, the only thing personally that I'm particularly concerned about is improving the bylaw itself. And let us, again, be clear that that involves going back to town meeting. So then the question becomes, when do we want to do it? This is where I'm interested in your input on it, because I have very mixed feelings about it. I'm not quite sure if, for instance, trying to go back to the fall town meeting with a bunch of tweaks is the right play. I personally, for instance, would rather go back in on the heels of a very good outcome at 42 Main, if we can get it, and be able to say to folks in town, you see, this works. And we can do it in a way that's cooperative and collaborative and, exert the pressure that we have, and we're not without it, but do it in a way that is trying to get into a better place. In other words, this is a coded way of saying, I'll be clear, that I'd like a better feeling about the commission and the things that we're able to accomplish to be a matter of record. before we venture back into the shark-infested waters of town meeting.
Great.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, maybe we can do a very thoughtful, thorough investigation of it over the summer and the fall, and look toward town meeting, shockingly, 2023, right? Yeah. May 2023, and come up with a work product that is a slam dunk. And I would say also that I think us, for instance, working perhaps this summer and fall with the planning board and the scenic roads thing, is the opportunity to build some bridges with people that could be helpful to us. Because I believe that our concerns are the planning board's concerns, and I believe the planning board's concerns are our concerns. And so if we can, show some good faith, get some good things done, be thoughtful and thorough about it. Meanwhile, we're doing just fine with what we've got, is my view. I didn't lose a lot of sleep over the fact that, Jim and I couldn't get it together this past 3 or 4 weeks, because I just thought I have been thinking about this a lot, and thinking about it in terms of strategy. So does anybody have am I completely dead wrong about all this, or?
I don't think so at all. No.
You're on the money. No.
I guess the one thing I'd say is, I don't mind putting off the gauntlet of town meeting for anything you're trying to done. But the one thing that was taken down was we had the rules and regs that council said, you can't really be more restrictive than the bylaw. But right. You and I should think about it, maybe be open to comments here.
Right.
Would a appropriate set of rules and regs be helpful to put that, to kind of give people some working, instructions that are legit, and not have to have it be a free form thing every time they come before us?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've always been of the opinion, and I think I want to have that line going through my head, not an attorney, just a paid spokesman, but that the bylaw has got to be the sum total of what we can do. And that I frankly never liked the idea of rules and regs. I like the idea of a sort of, this is your sort of short, like a kind of guideline to
to-do list.
The bylaw.
We have that already though, don't we, Kate? I mean, didn't we put a packet together?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Well, does that exist, Rebecca?
We had something that we prepared for homeowners or property owners to, just, this is the checklist of things you have to do.
Yeah.
And,
right. Yeah. I don't know if the building commissioner is giving that out right now.
I think that's the one that was too restrictive, was on the website, got taken down.
Yeah, that's part of that was
one iteration of it, but there was something before that, before we got tangled up and I don't think what we proposed was ever really rules and regulations, because it didn't tie into the bylaw at all. So but I do think we had like a simple this was quite some time ago.
Long time ago. Yeah.
Something quite simple and helpful.
Well, maybe something, that would help clarify what to my mind is a pretty straightforward bylaw in the first place would be helpful to get. But I was frankly in agreement with the town council from the beginning that you could not possibly have any kind of rule or regulation that was more restrictive than the law itself. It just didn't make any sense to me. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, I feel like we're functioning just fine. And I'm happy to answer, by email. Some applicant has questions about how do I navigate this? Well, Kate and I have been down to the building department and chatted with the staff there, and Laurie Lavoli, and I mean, we have a very good kind of relationship there, and so I think between them and us, we don't have any problem answering people's questions about you know, what's going on. I mean, I fielded a question yesterday from a local realtor asking me about, you know, how this works vis-a-vis a property that she's got a client interested in. And I just said, well, this is how, and I just referred them to the doc, you know, here's the bylaw. If you're going to try to tear something down that's such and such an age, this is what you're subject to. So I'm happy to sort of answer those questions for people. That's, to me, part of the job that we don't get paid for, you know, but, you know, ultimately, I think our goal is to revise the bylaw. You know, Jay Tallerman was very clear about this, that, you know, he would try to help us get the bylaw that we want. We have to just be clear about it and get it in the bylaw, which is the point, right? That you can't legislate,
Sure.
you know, without bringing it to town meeting and getting it in the bylaw. So, but I want us to be, I don't feel like a fall town meeting is smart for us politically.
Now, were you thinking of doing the rolling date at fall town meeting, or do you want to hold off on that as well?
Because you'd have to change the bylaw, you know, it involves bringing a new version of the bylaw to the floor. I think we would want all the components that we want and get them straight and make sure they're bulletproof. And I would argue for getting the advice and input, not just of town council, but of other people who might have some wisdom to offer us about how to get things through. Mm-hmm. You know, my observation has been, it's when people don't listen that they get their heads handed to them at town meeting. And so I want to make sure that we have plenty of time to listen, and not just, you know, sit there kind of slack-jawed, but seriously engage with what people have to say. I mean, I think the version of the bylaw that's in place right now is pretty good. But, you know, arguably, I think we need some time also to explore what other communities are doing and how you can put a little more teeth into it without, you know, feeling like you're infringing on the rights of property owners and all that stuff.
One thing I'm kind of interested in exploring is, you mentioned 75, and I'm actually thinking of 50 years. And I think that people might balk at that, but I think that we need to start protecting the mid-century homes.
Yes.
And I live in a neighborhood full of small mid-century homes that, you know, could be under threat, and it's quite nice to keep them. Well,
yeah, and of course, the closer you get to the present, the more controversial it gets, obviously. Exactly. It has to be really thought through. And, you know, again, I go back to that presentation we had on the National Register District from the chap from the State Historical Commission. Remember last, like, August, you know, he came by and I just found that presentation absolutely fascinating because, you know, he made the point, right, that it's not, historic houses are not just the pretty ones, you know, and it's not just houses that have been completely unaltered, that there's a narrative involved in this. Like we're seeing this in the Stone House, right? When you get down to brass tacks, the Doc Stone House is actually two houses, you know, that have been sort of knitted together over time. And they tell a really fascinating story. It happens to be a beautiful home, but it's also one that has this embedded narrative into it, you know, that's really fascinating and vital to the life of the town, and one of the arguments for saving it. So I agree with you, Rebecca, that
Kate Madison she was interested in the neighborhood that I live in, and she was hoping to maybe get it on Macris, because the background, I have a little research on it, and it was built for, it was mostly engineers in the 60s that lived here. Young families, and it's quite an interesting story to how the neighborhood served a need in town at that time. So
really like Deccan Data General people or something.
Yeah. So yes, it's a lot of history is a little broader than people think.
Right, right. Well, yeah, I mean, I grew up in Northborough, and there's a neighborhood, the Northgate neighborhood, that they were essentially sort of kit homes, post-war, post-World War II, late 40s, early 50s, kind of, they're, very modest little capes, and it's fascinating. But, that a neighborhood like that now, people are starting to recognize as, it's like a Levittown in a sense. A local sort of Levittown, that idea that they have a story to tell, and those houses are of a certain kind of value. So yeah, I agree with you that we have to think about that as well. And again, I'd like to look at other communities and what their number is, because I don't want to rush forward and have to go back and fix it again. Like, let's fix it once and let's fix it right. And when we come to town meeting, let's come with our stuff together, you know what I mean? And a very credible narrative to say that hey friends, we're looking to protect your town, this town, for the long term. And so I think that's going to take us some time, and it's not, I don't want to sound like I'm kicking the can down the road, but I think the kind of things that you're talking about, Rebecca, like what is really the cutoff date? What is the proper? I think it's got to be a floating thing, like a set number of years.
Yeah.
But what that period is, and it might be worth us reaching out to Mass Historical and their views on it. What was that fellow's name? He was such a nice guy. Again, I'm drawing a blank. But I'll reach out to him, because I found him really compelling on that, and see what the thinking is.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yep.
All right, fair enough. Unless anyone said anything else, we'll keep going. Try to get out of here. Celtics are on soon. I don't really care, but some of you might. Meeting minutes for, there's an error, I believe, on my agenda. It says approved meeting minutes for April 12th. It was actually approved meeting minutes for May 12th. Robert's rules expert, Kate Battles, am I allowed to go forward given that error? I am?
Yeah, it's considered a Scrivener's error. I believe you're fine.
Well, all right. I am a humble Scrivener, that's for sure.
Scribbler error, a Scrivener error?
Scrivener.
Yeah. Scribbler.
Scrivener. Do you remember?
Yeah, I don't think it's an issue. You're letting people know on this meeting that it's actually the May 12th minutes. I don't think that's an issue.
May 12th meeting. Does anyone have corrections for Dave? Let the record note that this is, alas and alack, the final meeting that we will have Dave as our recording secretary. And Dave has been a real trooper through thick and thin, some, personal challenges, injury. We have been able to rely on Dave to come through. And I'm very appreciative and thank him very much. And Dave will be missed and is welcome at any meeting, any time of the Historical Commission as a permanent friend of the commission. And I'm very appreciative and grateful. You have to be, you have to have a certain amount of patience to be recording secretary, especially when I'm running a meeting. So thank you so much, Dave. Shall we talk about these minutes? Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
I was going to say, do we have any people in mind as a replacement as yet?
Yeah, you're one of us. That's all we're allowed. One of us.
Oh, it's not, so we're out of budget for that again?
Budget is gone for recording secretaries. Yeah, alas.
Well, Dave, thank you.
So does anyone have notes, corrections, things? Anybody? Naturally, I have a few. I will go quickly, and I will say, if they're all agreeable to people, I'm happy to sort of, because I end up sending in the minutes anyway, to sort of execute these. It's not an issue. Page 1, last paragraph, Sally, Ms. Waters is with 2 T's. I know for a fact that Sally can't stand it. Her name is spelled correctly other places with 2 T's, but in that particular place, 4 lines from the bottom, it's spelled with 1, and that really annoys her. So I wanted to get it. On page 2, this was a bit of a tricky one. In the 3rd paragraph, Mr. Miller is encouraged by the deep attention being given to the property and to its possible status in the future. Comma, the deep attention being given to this property, comma, and to its possible status in the future, comma, by Mr. Shea and Fay School. Mr. Miller noted that there may be 3 paths forward. This is, I thought it was very important to get this clarified. 1, for Fay to keep the building. I'm reading it as amended. 1, for Fay to keep the building for institutional usage. 2, for Fay to sell the property to a residential buyer, possibly to include adaptive reuse. Or 3, for the town to purchase the property. I thought that was important for me to clarify. Then in 1, 2, 3, paragraph 4, last line, the new historical district enhances the availability of this support. Those are the corrections. Next paragraph is a lowercase s in historical commissions, ARPA request. A system has been developed to categorize the many requests for financial allotments. The signage project can tie in with the upcoming towns. I would replace birthday with tercentenary. We'll get fancy. Next paragraph, for complaints about the old burial ground, I would amend it to concerns about the old burial ground. And then this is important to me. First line, a citizen, this is the corrected text, a citizen who believed he'd witnessed the attempted a citizen believed he'd witnessed the attempted vandalism of stones. A police report had been filed. Mr. Miller showed some photos of damage and neglect in the area. It had been observed that someone attempted to rock one of the headstones so that it would fall. And then the last line, a few photos were presented to show some of the issues relating to the headstones being damaged. It just needs a D at the end of damage. Sorry for this. On page 3, this was another tricky one, and it feels ungenerous to go through this, but I want to make sure that this is correct. On the St. Mark's Triangle project, big good news on this to review. Mr. Wyson requested in November 2021 Massachusetts Historical Commission visit to the site, prompting a November 19, 2021 letter from MHC about what needed to be done in light of potential unmarked burials in the Triangle area. SHC is obliged to act upon the state's recommendations. Next paragraph, in a May 11th, 2022, a letter to SHC, St. Mark's replied to an earlier letter sent by the SHC. Parenthetically, I would add the date February 7, 2022. A conversation with Rob, it's Kuklovich, K-U-K-L-E, oh gosh, I'm gonna have to double check, but I believe it's V-I-C-Z.
W-I-C-Z.
W-I-C-Z, thank you. CFO of St. Mark's and Sue later, they're working towards solutions. And then I would just cut the rest of that and go straight to hiring. It's Archaeological Consulting Services of Guilford, not Wilford, Guilford, Connecticut. I've noted all of this and can pass it on to Dave. Ms. Pfaff is spelled Pfaff, right, Annie? Not with an H. It's ARHS is the high school, FACE students. There's an apostrophe on St. Mark's. Skipping down, I'm trying to do this quick, sorry. On the rules and regulations of the demolition delay bylaw, at the time, Mr. Wyson had done some extensive markups on the bylaws and the rules and regulations. We have a lot to tackle on this, and I would just trim that for clarity's sake, and leave out the specifics of what we're trying to hack out, because I think it's awfully confusing there, and simply say that town council told the committee that it is our town, our bylaws. A working group within the commission would be ideal to move ahead before the fall town meeting. And then again, correcting the spelling of Annie's name. And then on the final page, in the first paragraph, a vote to accept the April 12, 2022 meeting minutes as amended, I would add, was made. Ayes, spelling of Ms. Pfaff. It was suggested that supporting documents be filed with the meeting records. And then finally, let's see, the planning board in other business, the planning board, the Conservation Commission, and the Historical Commission, it says 3 town entities can propose scenic roads, the planning board, the Conservation Commission, and the Historical Commission. Skip the rest of that sentence and then say old trees and stone walls can also be part of scenic roads. That's fine. And then lastly, another correction on Annie's name. And then it says SHC doesn't have a logo, is often confused with the society. We need a logo of our own. I would add, and this is why I wanted to get to this. There's a cherry at the end of this long thing, is that Ms. Pfaff volunteered to attempt a design, which allows me to raise the point that I failed miserably in getting Annie Pfaff's design studies for a logo for the Southborough Historical Commission onto the agenda. So I couldn't send it and we can't discuss it. But let it be noted as I correct the minutes that subsequent to my mentioning our need for one and Annie volunteering to this, Dave, the infinitely patient Dave Monroe, our outgoing recording secretary, was kind enough to make his own attempt at it and send it to me a day or so later. It might have been the very next day. And I was very appreciative of that. And I promptly sent that along to Annie, who had officially volunteered her services in that regard. And Annie took that design in mind and in hand, and worked through various other iterations of it. And now we have a nice document of about 5 or 6 pages with various designs, very, I would say, streamlined versions, some with a little bit of an outline of the town, some that are just text only. And I look forward to getting my act together and sending that out with the July meeting packet. You see how I work that, right? I get my minutes thing in there and then get around to sort of correcting my own error, and to be able to thank Dave for his attempt at a logo and for Annie's hard work at that, and with the promise that I will get it on the next agenda. And we may even have a nifty logo or some kind of thing to put on letterhead soon. So I'm going to thank Dave and Annie in advance, and thank Dave for all his kindness and patience. And again, the notes, Dave, I can pass on to you. If everybody's okay with as I've laid out some of those corrections, can we take a vote on minutes as amended for May 12th?
Yes, I was going to make the motion. I would just suggest that you pass along your changes to David in writing, provided. Yeah, provided that you do so as read. I move we accept the minutes from the 12th as read.
Second.
Great, thank you. Roll call vote. Kate Battles.
Aye.
Jim Blaschke.
Aye.
Rebecca.
Aye.
Annie Pfaff.
Yes.
Miller votes yes. You are all so sweet and so patient and so kind, and I thank you so much. Grant, you see what you're in for? Next, we've got to schedule some future meetings, and here's my proposal. Annie has indicated, and I happen to be personally on board with this, that these 6 o'clock things are a little tough. The demands of motherhood, of family, and whatnot, of my own growling stomach. I would like to eat before, not after. Suggest that it would be nice to join the civilized world and maybe start at 7 or 7:30. Is there some feeling on that?
7:30 might be pushing it for me.
Yeah, agreed.
How about
I'm not really
7?
a night person.
Okay.
How does 7 work for everybody going forward?
I can do 7.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
So much better than 6.
Yeah, so much better. I'm starting.
Yeah, 6 is a challenge for me. So today is Thursday, June 16th. I think it would be a good idea, given the things that we have, to, in fact, I know summer meetings are, maybe less fun. I don't know. I'm weird this way because, for instance, I teach in the summer, and I love teaching in the summer. Like, it was always now it's all online right now, but I used to love going down to school in the summer. I'm weird that way. Like, it was a happy, loose, relaxed, everybody feels good. I can see this is about as resonating with you as my speeches with my students. So I'm going to get off of it. But today is Thursday, June 16th. Can I propose either July 14th or the 21st? That's a Thursday at 7 p.m.
I can do either.
Same.
Both work for me.
How about you, Jim?
I'm just checking calendar. I think that's all right. Yeah, either one's fine.
Okay, so let's say the 14th, July 14th at 7 p.m. Super.
Actually, if I could, because I think about it, got a wedding on the 16th for prepping for. So could I push that's for the 21st? We'll be very busy.
Yeah, is that okay? That's okay with everyone else, right?
Yep.
All right, let's say July 21st then at 7. And what I propose is that we schedule, see how this works out. We'll schedule July, August, September. Is that okay? Next 3. So we've got a little. So then the next would be, how about August 20? How does August 25th? Again, on a Thursday at 7 p.m.
That works.
All right, wait a second. What'd you say? August what?
August 25th.
I can't see why that one doesn't. It works right now. I'm free right now. I might have to be getting the kid to college, but I don't know. Probably not at that point. She might already be there.
Are you preferring folks Thursdays as opposed to other days of the week?
I could care.
Yeah, I mean, I could personally, once we get into the fall, Tuesdays and Thursdays are best for me because I got class till 6 on Monday, Wednesday, but
Wednesdays are difficult for me. Thursday works well. Thursday works well for me for what it's worth.
How about Tuesday? Is that a contender at all?
On August, that would be August 23rd.
In general, just in general for Tuesdays.
In general, it's okay for me.
So
do you want to do Tuesday, August 23rd at 7 p.m.?
That's what I'm suggesting. I have
okay.
Thursday activity that
okay.
we typically conflict with the.
Does that work?
The 23rd.
Okay. Good. All right. So then second meeting is Tuesday, August 23rd, 7 p.m. And we'll do the last one then. How about it would then be, if you want to go Tuesdays, Tuesday, September 20th.
Sure.
So I'll be out of town then, but that's fine. I don't have to be here.
Tuesday, how about everyone else? Is that okay?
Sure.
20th?
Yeah.
20th works.
Okay, it's Tuesday, September 20th at 7 p.m. And Rebecca, we will be envious of you wherever you are, I'm sure. But at that point, we'll have Grant and maybe somebody else joining us. So that will be great. Good. All right. So those three, and we'll leave it at that and see how that works out for people. And then we can adjust accordingly. But I know that's going to help Annie out, and certainly my stomach.
Would I, well, as long as I'm being a stickler, could we walk back the July 1 to the 19th possibly?
July to Tuesday, the 19th.
Works for people?
Where did we have it?
We had it on Thursday, 21st.
How is Tuesday, July 19th for our next meeting?
Works.
Yep.
That works.
Okay.
And these will all be virtual, right?
My understanding was that the AG's office was going to extend virtual through the end of the year.
Okay.
Potentially through December of 23. That's also it's in discussions right now.
Great.
December of 23.
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
I personally would enjoy all, giving you a big hug in person sometime soon, but I understand that it makes life a little bit easier to do it virtually. I think it's also depends on whether the town actually decides on the OWL system. It's got the one, but are they going to get more? I don't know.
Yeah. So Tuesday nights, sometimes Andrew has a committee meeting. So if it's virtual, we can manage it both from home. But if it's in person, one of us would have to stay home. So,
well, I don't think they're going to get, you can't quote me on this, but if the state determines that it goes through December of 23, regardless through the end of the year, I think that worst case, there would be a hybrid option.
Okay.
Worst case.
So yeah, I can do that on that Tuesday then.
Yeah.
It's funny, actually, Tuesdays are a little bit less appealing to me in general, just because that's often either planning board or select board days. And I'm big fans of both.
Not planning. Planning's only on Mondays. So just select Monday.
Yeah. Oh, you know what?
Tuesdays
that is the reason why we started moving to Thursdays is we found it was difficult to get a room sometimes.
Yeah, that's the thing I was most concerned about. For instance, tonight we are the only show on.
Yeah.
Let you know, so Thursdays tend to be easier to book the room. But so if we run into problems, Jim, we might have to slide back. But
well, I can do Thursdays. I've got a regular 8:30 group I'm part of on Thursday. It's not critical that I be there at the beginning, but if we could look at 90-minute agenda, that would be perfect.
Well, that would be the goal. I need to be.
We haven't met that goal lately.
Quicker. I promise. Well, let's try Tuesday the 19th and see how it goes, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, if we push back to Thursdays, I appreciate your flexibility, everybody, but I can make Thursdays work.
Yeah, it only gets difficult for me in the fall, where I Monday and Wednesday is going to be. I can't do it. All right, got that. Any other business that maybe come before? Mercifully, nothing. Which brings us to public comments. And if anyone has anything to say, I would love to hear from you. If you will only raise your hand. We have but 4. Going once, going twice. Bless you all. Which brings us, if there's a motion to adjourn, I will entertain it.
So moved.
Seconded.
Made and seconded, roll call vote. Kate Bowles.
Aye.
Jim Blaschke.
Bye.
Rebecca DePro.
Hi.
Annie Pfaff.
Yes.
Miller says aye. With again, very great thanks to Dave Monroe for all his good work. And patience and love for us. And we will see you in a month, and have a good night and go Celts.
Good night, everybody. Good to see you all.